you see. You have to understand this. And it's not that you have to think of the most important issue. You also have to think of the most effective way to tackle that issue. You may very well be able to rightly identify the most important issue. But what if you are using the least effective way to tackle that issue? And you know what is the problem with the less effective ways? The problem is not merely that they are less effective. The problem is that they make you feel that you are doing something effective. You see, it is very well known that one tree over the course of 40 years would absorb just 1 ton of carbon dioxide. And that is if that tree lives to get 40 years old. One tree over 40 years absorbs 1 ton of carbon dioxide. In 1 year, how much does it absorb? 0.025. 0.025 ton, 1. Whereas having one less child causes a difference of 60 tons per year. One child is 60 tons per year. And one tree is 0.025 tons per year. But by planting a tree, you start feeling that you have done your bit. And you feel very happy. All the measures that social activism is taking can contribute not 1% of that which having a child less does. But then all the do-gooders are roaming and they are going around with a lot of pride. Devote your resources, your energy, your Fridays, your Saturdays or your Sundays to doing the right thing. Have an awareness campaign. Go to young people in schools and colleges and tell them not to procreate. That's what you must be doing. Not that planting trees is harmful. I am fully in support of it. But then the opportunity cost is great. You understand opportunity cost? The same time that you invested in planting a tree could have been invested in delivering a presentation in a particular college. So do not say we are little beings, we can only do this much. The ones who are doing this much are the ones causing the problem. Misplaced climate activism is not solving the problem, it is a part of the problem. Everybody is becoming a climate activist without realizing what is it that really needs to be done. At the root of the climate catastrophe lies man's tendency to consume. And man consumes in 3 clear ways and 3 distinct ways. Whenever you will look around you, these are the 3 kinds of things you will find, right? Other human beings, other natural beings, and other man-made things. Man consumes all 3, and consumption of all 3 leads to carbon emissions. Even if you are vegan, you will eat grains at least. Where will the grains come from? Where will the grains come from? They can only come by felling forests. The earth does not have resources to support 8 billion or 11 billion vegans. Veganism doesn't help the cause of climate change beyond a point. We need 2 things. 1, less people and less consumption. And both of them together. You need a situation where there are not more than 2 or 3 billion people in the world. That has been scientifically calculated to be the sustainable limit. And currently we are 8 billion. We need to reduce it to 2 or 3 billion. That's the first thing. Secondly, these 2 or 3 billion people have to be spiritual so that they do not have a tendency to consume. So these are the 2 things that we require. 1, less population. Secondly, the population that remains must be highly spiritual in its outlook. Only then can you avoid the climate catastrophe. Climate catastrophe is a spiritual problem. And it can only have a spiritual solution. Climate change is a result of absence of spiritual education. Do not talk of two problems. There is just one problem. That problem is man's misguided and uneducated ego. Lack of spiritual education has brought this catastrophe upon us. That is the only problem, and therefore that has to be the only solution. All the other things that we are doing will not help much. If you are reproducing, you are bringing down entire humanity. So you have to be more than gentle now. And that does not mean cruelty. That means more compassion. More energetic action coming from deeper compassion and deeper sense of responsibility. Now you see why lack of spirituality is the biggest problem. Because when you do not operate from a spiritual center, then you operate from an emotional center. These emotions are what are causing this climate change. And I'm really surprised that so many people who are highly emotional are into climate activism. When the entire problem is of emotions. Emotion equals carbon in a big way. And the problem to this emotional center is nothing but spirituality. We are not addressing the central problem. We said it is not merely important to identify the problem. You also need to identify the most effective way to fight that problem. What is that most effective way? It is not tree plantation. The most effective way is spiritual awareness. That is what you have to do, and that is difficult. That is far more difficult than planting trees.